friends, welcome back to Kaley's Corner, where real stories meet soul deep healing. So if you're wondering where I'm sitting today, I'm actually sitting on our movie theater room, and I'm going to be talking about this movie here called Twisters. And of course there's always Top Gun, another one of my favorite movies, but I thought this would be good inspiration since Twisters here is the inspiration for my word today. And so we are just moving around and finding another place to go ahead and record these videos, and thought you could just look at this nice poster while I share the personal revelations that I've had from this movie, which I have seen probably too many times to count. Not even gonna lie, but whatever. Not even ashamed. It's a great movie. So if you haven't watched it, go ahead and go watch the Twisters movie with Glenn Powell in it. It's got an awesome soundtrack and it's just really good. So anyways, I wanted to go ahead and share something with you guys that actually came from this movie, and it hit me really deep. It was one of those thoughts that just kind of like has been around in my mind for a while, and then all of a sudden it clicked the other night and I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. I need to share this with someone else because I think that this is more than just me, and maybe it puts better language to it for someone else too. So I was watching the new Twisters movie, just a normal night, curled up, watching this awesome movie, and unexpectedly I felt like God was actually speaking to me directly in one of the lines of the movie. So in the movie there's Glenn Powell, who plays the super confident, charming storm chaser guy. His name is Tyler Owens. And then there's this girl, her name is Kate, who she used to chase tornadoes, but then she walked away because her life changed forever from chasing a tornado. She's very quiet, reserved. Clearly she's probably hiding something, and then we find out she actually was the one that survived a massive tornado hit years earlier, and she lost a bunch of her friends and loved ones, and that's why she doesn't talk about it, and why she stopped chasing storms. So, spoiler alert, that does happen in the movie. So as the story unfolds, they start chasing storms together, both Tyler and Kate. And there's this one particular storm that comes up, and it's another big one. They can feel it, they know it's going to be powerful, but they don't really know it's going to be that bad, not yet. So after the storm has passed, they've seen the destruction that the storm has left behind it. One of the characters says out loud that that was an EF5. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, which I didn't know, I knew nothing about tornadoes. Tornadoes are measured on something called the Enhanced Fujita scale, or the EF scale. So there's the EF1, which causes light damage, maybe some broken trees, broken fences. And then there's an EF3, which might tear off roofs, flip over cars. But then there's the EF5, which is catastrophic. Homes are completely flattened, towns are wiped out. There's like almost nothing left behind usually when these come through. And so what got me was in this line of the movie, they were talking about, Glenn Powell's character said, you don't know the rating of a tornado until the tornado has already happened. So they can't always predict what the tornado is actually going to be as it's coming in and as it's happening. You don't know. They base it off of the damage that the tornado actually caused. You only assign the rating afterwards once the damage has already happened. And so it was interesting because as I sat there watching that and thinking about it, all of a sudden, I don't know why it clicked this time, it's like, that's exactly what trauma is. Like, trauma in our life does that exact same thing. We have absolutely, like, we don't even always understand the magnitude of the trauma that we're going through because we're just in the middle of it and you're just getting through. When you're in the middle of something painful or overwhelming, either it's emotion, maybe it's abuse, maybe it's a toxic relationship or a loss or a childhood dysfunction, or maybe it's different health battles, you really most of the time don't have any idea how bad it actually is because you don't know. You're in the middle of it. You might not know that that storm that you're in is actually an EF5. You're just trying to survive the storm. And so you usually don't stop to ask, how is this storm, this current storm, going to affect me in the future or in the long term? You probably just say, oh, I have no idea that this is going to be a traumatic event that I am currently living. You just keep going, you keep smiling, you keep pretending that you're okay and everything's all right. You try to convince yourself that it's really not that bad and I am okay. But then time passes and you start to get out of it, or it ends altogether, and suddenly you start noticing there was actually a lot of damage. Maybe you find that you're anxious all the time, you struggle to deeply rest. Maybe you numb yourself or disassociate completely. Maybe you don't trust people. Maybe you're always waiting for something bad to happen and you just can't explain it. Your body is holding on to the tension that you haven't allowed yourself to release. And so I feel like what happens is then you begin to realize the storm that you were in is actually a lot bigger than you even had any idea of. The storm was a lot more worse than you thought. So, I mean, it's like you don't know that you were in the middle of an EF5 until years later, because you don't know that that was a traumatic event until years later, because trauma itself is based off of the damage that that event caused you. And you don't know the damage that is happening to you. You don't know the damage that will come of an event until it has already happened. You have already walked through it and you have survived it and you're on the other side. Then you can now realize that was actually a traumatic event, kind of like the tornado. You don't realize that it's an EF5 tornado when you're in the middle of the tornado until it has already gone through, wiped everything out, and then you have now realized that was actually an EF5 that you just survived. So I feel like, you know, the part in the movie, what really kind of wrecked me more on the emotional level, like once I started connecting the dots, that like realizing, oh my gosh, some of these things that I didn't think were traumatic at the time just because I was so good at surviving things in my life, maybe it doesn't mean that they weren't traumatic. Maybe it just means that I hadn't assigned them that level of trauma yet because I was still surviving them. I hadn't processed them. I didn't bring any light. I didn't bring them to light. They were still really, you know, I was in the shadows of that storm still, you know, years and years later. It was still consuming me and controlling me, and realizing that, yeah, some of these things might have actually been more traumatic than I was aware of, because you were just, you know, simply surviving them at the time. And so in the movie, Gwen Powell's character says to the girl who had lost all of her friends in this big tornado, how much more of your life are you going to let this tornado take from you? And I sat there and I realized, like, I got really emotional because I realized I've been letting the storm take more than it already has in my life. Like, I've been still living as if I was in the tornado. I'm still bracing for impact. I'm still trying to outrun my pain, trying to stay small enough so that, you know, people will accept me and value me. And I'm just trying to stay small so that I don't get swept up into the storm again. But not realizing that the storm is over, and the storm has been over, but I'm still bracing for impact, and how much that storm is still taking from me years later. But now I get to choose what comes next. And I feel like that's really what healing is A, you don't pretend that the storm didn't happen. You don't pretend that the tornado didn't happen, or the trauma didn't happen, or those events and experiences didn't happen. But you walk outside looking around at the damage and you say, okay, I see it now. I survived it. You honor yourself. I survived it, but I'm not going to let this storm or this tornado take anything else from me. It's already taken way too much. I'm ready to start to reclaim my life. And while you're in the storm, you don't get to rate the storm because you're in the middle of it. Just like when you're in the middle of a traumatic experience, you don't really even get to name what's going on. You just have to survive it. But now, as the storm and the trauma has ended, maybe now you can go back and you start to name it. You can start to understand it a little bit more. And naming it, I feel like then starts to give you a little bit of that power back, and you get to take your power back and realize, you know, all of these symptoms that I've been carrying with me for the rest of my life, I don't have to have forever. I don't have to let the storm keep, you know, wrecking my life for the rest of my life. I can take some of that power back, you know, and realizing that, like, my sensitivity, my physical pain, my need for safety, my fear of being too much or not enough, those are actually not weaknesses anymore. They're just debris that have been left over from that past storm, that past trauma storm that I have lived through. They're simply signs telling me that something violent and painful tore through my life. It wrecked up my life. It damaged a lot of parts of my life, but I lived through it. I survived it. And those are just symptoms. Those are debris. Those symptoms are the debris from the storm, from the traumatic storm itself. And so you can clean up the debris. You can start to heal the debris. And you don't have to live there anymore. So I don't know, I just felt like this like really made sense to me, and so I hope it, you know, kind of can make sense to you guys too, that if you've been feeling confused or broken, or like you should be over something by now, but you're not, it's not because you're behind. Maybe it's just because you haven't seen the damage until now. And that in itself is healing. The fact that you can start to see it and name it, that is healing. And that's okay. You're not weak and you're not being dramatic. Something bad happened to you and you survived it, and now you get to walk out of it and you clean up that mess and you heal it. You're waking up to the reality of a storm that you didn't even know you were in, but now you get to reclaim your life and you get to rebuild your life. And so with God and with time and with love and honesty and one step at a time, I want you to be able to reclaim your life, and that storm may have taken a lot from you, and it may have shaped you and shaped the rest of your life after that, but it doesn't get to define you anymore. Not anymore. You get to decide what kind of person you are and how much more that storm, that traumatic experience, that trauma storm takes from you. You can start to reclaim your power, reclaim your life, and choose healing, and choose peace, and choose to rebuild after that storm came through your life. And that's what I'm choosing to do. And I pray and I hope that that is what you guys are able to do as well. And so I pray that this blesses you. I pray that at least maybe it makes sense, brings some clarity, brings some revelation, or at least starts a conversation with yourself and maybe with God as well, maybe even a therapist or counselor. All of these things have been amazing for me in my healing journey as well. And so I am going to go ahead and include that clip here too on the video so that you can see it and just kind of get that emotional feeling of how much more are you going to let this trauma storm take from you, and are you ready to reclaim it? Are you ready to move forward and heal and rebuild after what this storm did to you and what it took from you? So I pray this blesses you, and I'll see you again later. Bye.
What? You really think I'm an idiot, don't you?
No, I don't think you're an
Hey, modeling's got so much better. I can upload this to my laptop, link up with a supercomputer. I'm telling you, we can get a new model running. It's a great idea. How did you not tell me about this before?
Because I got it wrong. In the field, in the moment, when it mattered, I got it wrong. Okay, I underestimated what we were up against, and I pushed it too far. And for what? Some childish dream I had that I could make a difference. It was never gonna work. And I have to live with that forever.
You know, EF1 or EF5 tornado rating. It's not based on size or wind speed. Power we ascribe to it. It's based on damage. That's only after the fact we can really define it. What it destroys, what it takes from us. I'm sorry for what happened. But how much more are you gonna let this thing take from you?
You know, you should get some sleep. Don't want to miss any storms tomorrow.